Hey guys, it's Yorkie here with more coverage of the AOR GT3 Tier 1 PC League, and today we have coverage from round 10 at Laguna Seca. Now we're unfortunately skipping rounds 8 and 9, and I shall be explaining those in just a moment, but first let's get into the coverage of qualifying from myself and also Fizzy.
Hello everyone and welcome to another AOR race. It is the PC GT3 League Tier 1 on Project Cars 2. It is the final race of Season 11. I feel like I said this every season, but it feels like it's just flown by and we're already here at round 10 out of 10 at Laguna Seca. A very hot evening around this twisty and challenging circuit. My name is Fizzy and I'm going to be calling the action around here today, along with, of course, the man, the myth, the Yorkie065.
Hello guys, welcome to the stream. As Fizzy has said, the season has flown by and it is the last race of the season. We're here at the finale and we have ourselves a championship fight. We still got to crown a Drivers' Championship here in Tier 1, so we are going to be keeping an eye on that, and it is going to be between this man here, who we're currently watching at the moment, Leon the Sick One, and the car that is immediately following him currently on track, Jardier. It's between these two guys, 33 points in it, and I believe, if I'm correct, if Leon wins, Jardier needs 7th or higher to win the championship?
Basically if Leon wins this final race, which he really realistically needs to do to have a chance, knowing how fast Jardier is, Jardier he cannot finish below 7th then to if he wants to be the champion. Jardier, if he finishes 7th or above, he will win the championship regardless of what Leon does. But of course, if he has a slightly off day, if he has a bit of an incident somewhere, then and Leon actually does win the race, then Jardier needs to make sure at least doesn't drop below that 7th place, which is the key position to look out for in terms of Jardier's race tonight.
Yep, well, Jardier was actually looking slightly off form last week. He started, I believe, 4th position and was kind of in and around 3rd for a while before dropping back into 4th with CJB getting past him, and then there was a little bit of contact between the two of them. There was a slight incident and Jardier picked up damage from that. But in the second half of the race, after the pit stops, Jardier just didn't have the pace of the top 3 guys in front of him. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Jardier has managed to recover that form and see if he'll be back at the sharp end of the field, and obviously he'll hope to be if he wants to give himself the best chance of winning the championship.
Indeed, and last week's result was actually the first time all season that Jardier's finished outside of the podium, crossed the line in 4th, and actually a post-race penalty for that incident with CJB, as that was taken to the deuce, dropped him down one further position down to 5th place. So I mean, based on all his results so far this season, you would expect him to finish above 7th here tonight. But of course, it remains to be seen how high up he will be in qualifying, first of all, to give himself that good position to start from to make that happen. And of course, then he needs to stay out of trouble in the race. If he does that, he has a good chance of winning. Leon will do his best to put a pressure on. At the moment, though, the main pressure has been put on by Jardier's own teammate here in qualifying, Mr. Van Ommen, sitting on provisional pole after the first run of flying laps.
Yeah, he's just lining himself up for another flying lap. We were just watching CJB just now. He's got himself a 1 grid place penalty, possibly for, I imagine, crossing the pit exit line. That's generally the kind of penalty that you get for doing that kind of thing. So he's actually gone and put himself up on pole. So currently he'll be starting in P2. Benazili's also got himself up at the sharp end of the field. Villalobos is running well. Just put himself in.
Times are dropping.
Third.
Jardier is up to 2nd now. Times are just coming in thick and fast. 7/10 of a second for Jardier off being on provisional pole at the moment. Of course, with CJB's grid penalty, that means Jardier is actually on pole as he stands. As he has a massive slide back there, and Leon also goes back to the pit lane to
So does Jardier.
Recharges batteries.
Yep, Jardier's done exactly the same. They've just come out right behind each other, line astern. We'll quickly look through some of the other drivers. So there's Mr. Van Orman, who was holding pole position earlier before that influx of drivers came in and improved their lap times. Lagrom is currently holding 7th with Dakuza in 8th. Dowking in his Lamborghini is holding 9th with 2 Desert Pack back in the Audi is there in 10th place. Shooter in his M6 is in 11th. Someone has just pumped in a decent time somewhere along the line. I think it wasn't Dowking. It was JK, sorry.
Oh, look at that! Mr. Van Orman has got up to 2nd place with exactly the same lap time as Jardier. To the thousandth of a second. As Penicilli now goes provisional pole.
Yep, something else that we have, interestingly, in this final race as well, is we've got a few Ferraris. Just as a kind of a little bit of a test, just to see what their pace is. They're not going to be setting any valid lap times here in the qualifying session, so we're not going to get an idea as to what pace they do have from this session. But Zal is running a Ferrari, so is Andrex, and so is Mr. Speed Demon 91. Those 3 drivers are all running Ferraris. But yeah, let's jump back up. Mr. Villalobos has got himself up into 2nd place in that Z4. Very impressive. The Z4 should, well, as you can see, do pretty well around this circuit.
Yeah, I mean, Villalobos has had pretty decent season, sitting 8th in the championship. It's been once on the podium, that was round 2, so I'm sure he's looking to get back up towards those positions, and it's looking good at the moment in qualifying as the Lamborghini gets out of his way, coming down into that super tricky corkscrew, which is, you know, one of the most difficult corners in all of motorsport, really. Certainly one of the most unique corners. And Villalobos a little bit on the gravel there, actually, on the sand coming through the final few corners, and that means he has bailed out of that lap attempt. But it's still time, 2.5 minutes to go for everyone to improve. Leon, the sick one, really needs to improve on his 7th place at the moment if he wants to really put that pressure on Jardier. At least, I would say that Leon kind of needs to start the race ahead of Jardier to have a realistic chance, and then of course hope for Jardier to have some issues. But yeah, Leon just needs to push on and see what he can do. As actually his teammate is close ahead of him on track and going off the track, very much off the track.
Yeah, he was diving well out of his way. Leon was flashing the lights, obviously wanting to get past and try and set a decent lap.
Yeah, Tepek getting a little bit desperate to not block his teammate. As Leon now starts what I guess will be his penultimate attempt. That's all he has time for at the moment.
That's if he's got the fuel, which he has. He's got 5.4 litres, so he should be able to easily do the 2 laps here. He'll be able to get a lap in, providing that he doesn't make any big mistakes, and then he'll have one more lap, one more attempt afterwards as well. Jardier has now got himself up onto pole position provisionally. Obviously, we still got just over a minute left in the session, so things could change. Benazidi seems to be on a flying lap. Villalobos is, I believe, not on a lap, judging by the way he took that corner, but he'll be starting his final lap. Now, Dowking has gone and popped himself up into a provisional pole position, so times are chopping and changing.
4/10 of a second for Dowking.
Wow, he's on
that is an
pace
incredible lap time.
Yeah, certainly has. Villalobos starting his lap. CJB, imagine, is on the lap as he's coming through turns 1 and 2. Jardier is in the pits. He's not going to be setting any more laps, so P2 is going to be the best that he can do. Villalobos has returned to the pits, so P4 is going to be the best for him. Benazili across the line is not going to improve, but he has now started his final flying lap. Leon's gone and popped himself up into 4th. He's got one more lap to try and get himself up ahead of Jardier.
He only needs 1/10 of a second in order to go up to 2nd ahead of his championship rival Jardier. That is what he'll be pushing towards on this final lap. There is a little bit of traffic just ahead of him, another Lamborghini, who probably also is on a flying lap. You'd hope for Leon's sake that he's not that much faster, that he'll catch up to him by the end of the lap, but we'll have to wait and see. That Lamborghini actually aborts his run and gets out of the way. That will help Leon. I guess we can follow him towards the end. Of course, we need to keep an eye on a few other drivers as well. Van Orman potentially on a lap, ADAs as well, and CJB. But Jardire's actually back out on track, but he won't have time to settle the lap. Actually looks like he has some damage to his car. CJB now coming across the line. And he stays in P...
No,
actually, no, he goes up to P3. The finish line was a little bit further along than I was expecting there. And that is very close behind Jardire as well. For CJB, impressive time for him. Mr. Van Ammen then, next to cross the line. He stays in P7. And then, of course, we are waiting for Leon the Sick One. What will this run do for him? He's currently sitting provisionally 5th place on the grid. He needs just a 10th of a second to get himself up to 2nd ahead of his championship rival. What will this lap be? And it will be 2nd place! A 10th of a second faster than Jardire, nearly 3/10 of a second off Dalking's pole time. But Leon will be starting in 2nd ahead of Jardire in 3rd, potentially crucial for the championship.
Yep, Topak's going to be the last man coming across the line. Touring seems to be just touring around the circuit, and everybody else has come back into the pits as well. So that should be qualifying complete.
Indeed, and what a session that was, constantly swapping laps towards the top of the table. But in the end, it's Dalking who will take the pole position at a bonus point for this final round at Laguna Seca. Dalking is still looking for his first win in the league. He's had 2 second places in a row now. Will this finally be the one where he can take the race win? Then Liam the Sick One and Jardire, the 2 championship contenders remaining, starting from 2nd and 3rd ahead of CJB, Benny Seeley, Villalobos, Mr. Van Ammen, Gamisuke, JK, and ADAs in the top 10. Then Tudesapak, Nagram, Dakusa, Shooter, Rodders, TM Touring, Tapek, Lusty, Scott, and then the 3 Ferraris that are sort of test drivers here tonight. Speed Demon, Azal, and Andrew.
Now, unfortunately, we had some technical issues during this round, which forced us to restart in the race and having to run with a shorter race distance than originally planned. The actual race coverage you're going to be seeing here is actually from that second run, the one that we did actually manage to complete in the end. I won't be showing the footage from essentially the first attempt of this final round, as it was the results that came from this race that counted for the final round and therefore contributed to the GT3 Season 11 Championship. Now, because of the lobby restart, the first part or first half of this formation lap that we're doing is getting the guys in their actual qualifying order that they had qualified in earlier on in the evening. So that is what you're seeing here. And also quickly, before we actually get into the coverage from myself and Fizzy on the actual race, the reasons why didn't end up covering round 8 and round 9 here on the channel is because unfortunately I was absent for round 8 at Spa-Francorchamps. I already had other commitments and therefore wasn't able to commentate in the live stream that happened on the actual evening. And then when it came to round 9, unfortunately the same thing that happened at Silverstone happened at Texas Motor Speedway, where my recording had some issues and basically the file wasn't usable, and therefore I couldn't produce the coverage to upload here on my channel. So unfortunately we have missed out 2 of the rounds and gone from round 7 at Alton Park to the final round here at Laguna Seca. But either way, I hope you guys have been enjoying the coverage here with the AOR GT3 League, and I hope you guys enjoy this coverage of the final round from myself and Fizzy.
So Dalking's picked up a jump start penalty, but I assume that'll get removed, right?
Yeah, we'll remove that one at the end of the race, as I'm guessing he just jumped the start, so that's 20-second penalty that he had, so remember that one.
Yep.
But yeah, it's going to be 25 lap race this time. They still have to do their mandatory pit stop. We're in the qualifying order. We're all good to go. Fingers crossed that we encounter no other issues and we have a stellar 25 laps.
Indeed. I've kind of ruined my voice just from talking throughout this break, but so I'll have to ask you to do everything now. But hopefully we will be in for a cracker of a final 25 laps of the season. A second start of the final round of Season 11 here at Laguna Seca. A shortened race because of a previous mass disconnection, but we are back then in qualifying order. Leon's second attempt to try and stay ahead of Jardier at the start. Let's see what he can do now as Dalking puts his foot down to start the race once again, and it looks like it's going to be a similar story. Jardier with a good reaction to Dalking, potentially just Leon being fair to him and just... Ooh. Oh my goodness, as Leon actually turns into the back, slightly off Jardier, and CJB is having a big spin and in front of a lot of the cars. And that is a huge pile-up as CJB got loose and spun across the track in front of the pack, and that has spread things out much more than we saw at the start of the first race tonight. It was all clean then, and it was all a bit of a mess now behind Leon. It was Leon that sort of turned in a little bit into the back of Jardier, ended up with CJB having to back off, getting into a spin and spinning completely the wrong way, unfortunately, in front of the whole pack. And that's going to cost a lot of drivers probably some damage, and CJB, of course, has dropped actually out of the lobby even.
Yeah, I imagine he probably picked up quite a fair amount of damage, as I think he got hit by a whole number of cars in that quite big pile-up there down at the Andretti hairpin. Back up at the front, though, the fortune of Dalking, Jardier, Leon and Benazili pulling away from Dacusa in 5th place, as Leon, the sick one, is diving into the pits already. Now this is interesting, so this will be a good way of keeping an eye on how long the guys or how long a pit stop actually takes. Obviously Leon wanting to get out the way of possibly everyone and every other thing, as I imagine a lot of the other drivers going to be pitting, so Leon's taken proper advantage of this situation here, because he's going to have a very nice big healthy gap between him and 2 Desert Pack. A number of the other drivers who are ahead probably may want to pit in the next couple of laps as well. So he's got a nice big bit of clear air to run his own pace and potentially leapfrog the guys of Dalking and Jardier who were in front of him.
Certainly, yeah. It'll be interesting. It was CJB that pulled it off while in that lead pack in the first race tonight, and now it's Leon that will try that strategy, of course helped by a lot of other drivers getting into the pits as well, which means less traffic for Leon to get through throughout this race, with JK Nagram, Dacusa, Villalobos, Gamisuke, Mr. Venom and ADAs all also going to the pit lane at the end of the first lap here. Leon, the sick one, a whole 8 seconds ahead of the next man behind him who's been through the pits, as we are watching Jardier, who is over a second behind Dalking, a little bit further back than he was at this stage in the first race. But of course, no pressure on him. The championship permutations, just to remind everyone of that, Jardier only needs to finish in the top 7 to guarantee himself the championship and to become a 3-time champion in the league. And that is, of course, depending on also Leon, the sick one, winning the race, who's the only man who can challenge him. As now 2 more cars into the pit lane. Shooter coming in from 10th place to Desert Pack as well, going in. So it's already again going to be a blitz with half the field having pitted, half the field staying out there. And look at this whole train of cars that are sort of the remainder of the field that have yet to been through the pits.
Yep, I'm just keeping an eye on Leon at the moment. Obviously, yes, this is out lap, so his lap time isn't representative. He lost about 19 to 20 seconds in the pit lane, so relatively short pit lane and a pit stop here at Laguna Seca. So that is the gap that we're going to need to keep an eye on. At the moment, Leon is around 22 seconds, so he's lost a couple of seconds over the course of the last lap. But one thing we've also noticed, difference between this particular run of the final round here in comparison to what we had in the previous one, we've got a McLaren with Zhao. He's dropped the Ferrari and he's gone for the 650S. Andrex has also dropped the Ferrari as well, and he's gone for the Renault RS01 GT3 car and is racing that in this. So a little bit of a mix-up with a number of drivers here, picking slightly different cars to what they were running the previous time.
Well, look, they had enough of the Ferrari testing and probably just a situation of not really getting to be fighting too hard. Now they're in a proper car that is allowed, technically, for this season, and they're then allowed to get into whatever fights they want throughout the field without getting in anyone's... well, they can get in anyone's way, actually, because there's no obligation to get out of the way now, as that was...
2 Desert Pack going into the pits for a second time. Yes.
Why would he do that?
I am not entirely sure. interestingly, Dow King's previous lap time was a 25.4. He must have picked up a penalty. He has. He's got a 2-second penalty from a cut track somewhere along the line. So 2 seconds he has tied to his name in time penalties at the moment. We're ignoring the 20-second time penalty that he has, which would have been from probably jumping the start. And we were trying to... Whoa, that was very, very sideways and wiggly there from Dow King as he ran a little bit wide, picking up a little bit of gravel. But he's managed to hold on to that one. But yeah, 20-second penalty we're ignoring because yeah, slight jump start when trying to reform up in the correct order. But 2 Desert Pack coming out of the pits in last place after pitting for a second time, possibly not having enough
fuel. You can see the leader is actually behind him as well. Yeah. So he's nearly lapped already. Of course, those guys have to pit still as Andrex also goes through the pit lane. But yeah, it's going to be a lonely race, you would think, for the Desert Pack, unfortunately for him in the final round. And Andrex got in the pits, but it means that now only the top 6 are remaining in terms of having to do their mandatory pit stop. Leon the Sick one, though, only 5 seconds already behind this train here, actually, which is Scott in a bit of a sandwich between Tapek and Zal. And Scott actually going for a move. He doesn't like to be that filling of the sandwich, actually. He's going to go for trying to squeeze that massive Bentley on the outside of turn 5, and he does it, carrying the momentum around the outside. Tapek losing speed on the inside, under pressure now as well from from the McLaren of Zal, who's in the gravel. It's such a tricky corner that fast left-hander to go side by side, and there just wasn't enough room for Zal to stay on the circuit, unfortunately. That means he's lost out in that particular battle and will be under pressure from Leon the Sick one very, very soon. Yeah, that was, it's just not a corner that you can really go side by side with someone else, so it was a little bit of ambitious from Zal to go around the outside, as there's a little brake marker board there on the track that someone has knocked, but Leon the Sick one closing right up towards the rear of him. Obviously Scott managing to make a very nice move on Leon the Sick one's teammate Tapek. So Leon putting in another solid lap time, slightly quicker than the leaders, so he's trying to close that back down, but obviously with this traffic that's immediately here in front of him, his progress could potentially be hampered a little bit. Zal does the right thing though, moves very nicely out of his way and does very little to interfere with this lap that Leon will be setting, and hopefully he'll be pushing hard to try and close this gap and give himself the best potential chance to get the lead, as Dow King is coming under threat from Jardier coming into the corkscrew. Indeed. Jardier putting the pressure on, just like we saw in the first race run. And Dow King that time didn't make a mistake, off camera, mind you. Hopefully, if we does the same again, we'll catch it and see how the overtake happens. But at the moment, Dow King doing his best to keep the reigning champion and most likely the season champion once again, Jardier, at bay. He was struggling a little bit under braking into the first corner earlier on, and once again, look at that late braking from Jardier. That just means a later turn in as well, as long as Dow King keeps to the racing line there. That is a job done. Going defensive though into the medium speed right-hander, and again just defending every single corner at the moment. Jardier just getting better exit, better traction, carrying more speed down the straights at the moment. Now looking to the outside, this is where Scott in that Bentley made the move on Tapek earlier on. Jardier cannot quite do the same. Dow King carrying much more speed and sticking to that racing line, which means they'll avoid having to be side by side through here, which is probably good for both of them. And a little bit less pressure this time from Dow King into the corkscrew, but it's going to be a long 18 remaining laps as he has a huge slide actually into the corkscrew, and that is the last place you want to slide your car.
Yeah, Dow King seems to really be struggling under braking, locking up the tyres potentially a little bit. Perhaps got his brake bias a little bit too far rearwards, but this is playing very, very nicely into Leon's hands. This squabble here at the front for the lead of the race. Let's check out what the lap times of these two front runners are going to be this time coming across the line. Both up in the low 23s. Leon is doing 22s, or very low 22s, so potentially gaining a good second to a second and a half here, maybe even more on this lap alone. He's going to be coming out of the final turn now to set his lap. Jardier is pressurising Dowking once again as Dowking's going defensive, coming through turn 3 now into the slightly faster turn 4 as Dowking is getting very sideways. Very nicely held, going immediately defensive to block the inside line, forcing Jardier to go around the outside into this long-handed sweeper. This could be interesting, but Dowking is going to have to concede the position. Jardier has gone and got himself up into the lead, and Leon's previous lap was a low 22, 1 second quicker than the two guys who are currently on screen that we're watching now.
Wow, what a move there from Jardier, and this time I actually saw how it happened. Round the outside of turn 5, that would be fantastic stuff for him. Dowking clearly tried his very best to hang on. They got so close together, the two cars on corner exit, but Jardier just had that nose ahead, had the drive that he needed to make the move stick, and that is another move into the lead for the champion, as I think Jardier's main rival now is indeed this man, Leon the Sick One, who is trying to make his way through that Bentley with such a wide car. It's certainly going to hold him up through these final few corners, even if Leon is a lot faster. Scott has no obligation to get out of the way, of course. He is racing pole position at the moment. Of course, Leon having made that pit stop already in this race. Leon losing a little bit of time, just under 20 seconds off Jardier in the lead of this race. But you do think that his pit stop is a little bit more than 20 seconds, actually. But let's see, it's crucial for Leon to make the move as quickly as possible. And there we go, braking much later, maybe too late, actually, on Scott. Still on the outside, though, still just recovered the nose of his car in time to get the turn in he needed to stay ahead. Just about there, and Leon the Sick One now finally has some clear air ahead of him. In fact, he's caught 15 seconds of clear air ahead of him, which certainly will be enough for him to push on and try and, if not to be faster than Jardier, at least try and match him so that they'll be close together. And maybe Leon even ahead when Jardier makes his pit stop.
Yeah, Leon, I think, was probably hoping that Scott was going to be a little bit more forgiving with giving up the pass. Obviously, Scott not wanting to lose too much time. He didn't exactly fight him heavily or really hard. Just Leon braking a little bit later into turn 2. The Andretti hairpin ran a little bit deep, which kind of brought Scott back in within close proximity. So jumping back up to the front with Jardier now dropping into the 21s, Dowking right there on his tail with a 22.0. Be interesting to see what Leon would do on this lap this time round. He'll probably be in around the mid 22s, I would have thought, with his slight mistake going into that first turn. Wow, it's a low 22 in fact. So if he did manage to make the apexes in through turn 2, imagine what his lap time could have been. But yeah, Leon's obviously going to be pushing hard to try and close the gap. Benazili staying in a comfortable third with quite a bit of free air around him.
He's running decent pace, to be fair to him. 4 and a bit seconds off the front 2. Looking for another solid result this season, sitting 5th in the championship. Cannot really change. The Ku's are the only man who could potentially take that from him. But there is a gap there of 30 points, so you'd think that Benazili is that one covered, especially if he carries on like he is at the moment. On for net 4th place.
Maybe.
Yep.
How many points would he score for? Well, no, he's 4th place in the race. How many points would he score if he gets 4th in the race? Do you remember?
Oh, actually, yes. Suomi is 4th in the championship, only 15 ahead.
He's not
of
present here at the
Benazili,
race.
so, and he's not here, yeah. So you would get 33 points. That is definitely more than what he needs. So yeah, Benazili actually looking at a 4th place championship finish with a solid result there, which is very impressive in his debut season. Yeah,
that's a very solid result. Someone who will probably be a little bit disappointed, a little bit disheartened about how this race is going so far is Villalobos. Just saw these two guys, Nagram and Touring, side by side coming into the final turn. But yeah, Villalobos was obviously looking very, very strong in the first run of this round. Was doing quite decently, and then unfortunately he got caught up with the rather large pileup that we had here in turn 2 on the first flying lap. Obviously, as you can see, there's a little bit of damage to the front of his car. He has made his pit stop, and I imagine that he has actually got that repaired. But yeah, he's obviously a world away from where he was previously. So I feel a little bit sorry there for Villalobos, as he was looking rather strong, and now Touring is having to go defensive. He's actually having to completely back out to avoid getting a track penalty, and he is backed out so hard that he's left the lobby.
He backed out so hard that he's just completely disappeared from the racetrack. Another disconnection potentially for him, or some other issue. But yeah, shame then for Team Touring. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously doesn't matter too much in terms of the championship for him. He's only done one race this season in this league. I believe he was in Tier 2, wasn't he?
Quite potentially. I'm not entirely sure, but I've seen him in more than one race this season. I've seen him in a good 2 or 3.
It's only says
but
one
he may not have scored. Yeah, may not have scored points. But something just to note: Double Delta has mentioned in the live stream chat that actually Jardier is able to see Leon on his leaderboard, so he's got an idea as to what the gap is. He's very closely monitoring that, obviously trying to set decent lap times, and he's doing so at the moment a good 0.4 of a second faster than Leon on the previous lap. But apparently Jardier thinking of basically running long and doing a late pit stop.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense, I would say, for Jardier. I mean, well, depends on his mindset in this final race, of course. I'm sure he wants to win the race, and then it makes sense to just put the lap ins in clean air. I mean, he certainly knows that he has the pace if he needs it, and you know, the other alternative would probably put him into a battle directly with Leon for the rest of the race, which might not be good for either of them in terms of their overall result. Would be fun for us though, and I would argue that it might be more fun for the drivers. But yeah, in terms of tactically for the race, I think Jardier makes a good decision there by doing a late pit stop and taking advantage of that clear air, as we're now on board with a man who does not have any clean air. That is Nagrom, running right at the back of Lusty in the BMW M6. Running down the main straight is the battle for 8th position in the race. Of course, Lusty, one of the drivers that have picked up a penalty so far, so something to keep in mind. But Nagrom wanting to get through on the BMW, so hopefully another little ding-dong battle in store for us here.
Yeah, so keep an eye on this one, and behind them we also have Villalobos and Scott. Obviously Scott pitting just a couple of laps ago, not long after he got passed by Leon. And just keep an eye on those lap times of the front guys as well whilst we watch this battle at the moment. Nagrom isn't anywhere near enough to really threaten Lusty for 8th place. It's currently sat with him as Lusty dips the wheel into the grassy, gravelly sand that's out there just beyond the curb, which can obviously affect your momentum, as Nagrom getting very heavy on the brakes, getting a little bit squirrely there coming into the corkscrew, but holds that quite nicely. Looks like he has closed up a car length or two onto the back of Lusty. He's now getting much closer through the run of turn 9 and turn 10. That's a little bit wide there. You don't want to be doing that. You want to be trying to keep the wheels on the black stuff to get the most traction. Coming out of the final turn, not really going to be quite close enough to make a move coming into the turn 2 Andretti hairpin as we come through turn 1 now, as Zal is making his pit stop in the 650S GT3.
Oh. That drift as well.
Yep, nice little slide there.
Yeah, it's seeming quite a few cars running quite loose, whether that's just pushing hard or whether actually having a little bit of a loose setup. I do not know, but certainly quite a bit of drifting going on, which certainly can't help too much in terms of tires or grip.
No, although interestingly, I was speaking with Leon the other week about setups and stuff, and they were saying that him and Jardier and Mr. Van Omen and the guys tend to like a very loose car, as it tends to be the quickest. You basically just drive the car right on the limit all the time. That's how they extract the pace out of their car. So it looks like a number of other drivers are probably finding similar sort of solutions to try and be that little bit quicker, but obviously in doing so the car becomes a little bit unsafe, and if you do make a mistake it is more likely to cost you, as Nagrom's getting very close there to the back of Lusty. I think there may have actually been contact as Lusty got pushed deep. Nagrom's lost the momentum, and Villalobos is now coming up onto the back of this fight to make it a three-way train.
Indeed. See how patient Nagrom will be. Suddenly got very close into that final corner. Lusty a little bit deep on the brakes into turn 1. So Villalobos is right with him now as well. So it's turned into a three-way fight. Let's see if Scott can join him in a bit as well, having made his pit stop. All these guys have made their pit stops, have they?
I believe so.
I believe so. So, yep, let's see then. Nagrom pushing hard. And actually, Jardir apparently getting close to lap traffic already, which might be interesting. I wonder if... Oh, look at that. He's drifting as well. And Dalking's actually closed back up a little bit. I mean, Dalking, he certainly has the pace. Leon and Jardir has been running the relatively similar lap times recently. Leon actually a tiny bit slower than Jardir now. But Dalking's last couple of laps have been better than both of them. In the 21s, whereas Jardir and Leon's been in the 22s. Low 22s, mind. But you can see how close Dalking is. And he also seems to be another one with one of those loose, fast setups, apparently, which, of course, as you said, oh my goodness, that's not going to help, is it? Nope. That's a little bit too fast.
Slow down penalty
that corner.
as well, I would have thought, for going out that wide, which could potentially, if he doesn't clear the penalty like now,
yeah,
it's going to be a long one. There we go. He's trying to do it. So that's very unfortunate for him. Just a small mistake. It's going to cost him very, very dearly. Obviously, Jardier coming up to the back of two Desert Pack.
Villalobos. Meanwhile, yeah, Villalobos actually passed Nagrom.
Yes, he has. Up into 8th place now. So Lusty, the new generation, or newer generation BMW GT3 car in front of him. Old versus new, Z4 versus M6.
Old versus new. Let's get a vote going in the chat. Who do you think will win this battle? Old BMW versus new BMW? I think I might get the answer quite quickly, actually, because look at that. That was Lusty getting very wiggly out of the corner. Villalobos on the outside in the corkscrew. Will he dare to try and break him? His door is actually turned into him a little bit in the braking zone. Lusty losing a lot of speed, being forced very much onto that curb. Quite naughty from Villalobos, actually, closing that door before he was clear. And that has led as well to Nagrom getting right up to the back of Lusty, and Lusty again getting wiggly out of the penultimate corner, defending. Nagrom later on the brakes, trying to go round the outside. Can he keep up the momentum? A little bit on the curb as well, which won't help his traction. And Lusty actually, with the tighter line, has still managed to get a good amount of traction out of that corner and staying ahead of Nagrom. So Villalobos managed to get past both of these cars, and Nagrom back on the attack on the M6, as Scott as well is now getting into the mix.
Yep, four-way fight we have going on here, and Nagrom seems to be struggling a little bit, it looks like, with the rear tyres. Obviously pushing hard. Scott is now there in the big mighty V8 Bentley, as Dowking has now come into the pits to make his stop in the race. So Leon 22 seconds behind. Be interesting to see where Dowking comes out in relation to Leon. Will Leon be ahead, or will he be behind? As Dowking is now making his way out of the pit lane, and it looks like Leon's going to take second place.
He will indeed. So Dowking, yeah, he did lose some more time to Jardir before that pit stop. There's battles making this thing now. Scott is nearly getting alongside Nagrom as well. Oh, nearly pushing him through the penultimate corner. This battle for 8th place is raging on. Scott trying to get through. He's been catching up to them slowly. Look at that beautiful undercut line, and that will give him at least a little bit of car alongside on the inside line. Will that Bentley have straight line speed? Picking up a little bit of slipstream as well from the BMW, sticking to that inside line as well. So I think Scott should have this covered if he doesn't make a mistake in the braking. So both of them having a little bit of a wiggle on the brakes, locking the rears ever so slightly. But Scott in the Bentley makes the move stick on Nagrom. So Nagrom from going on the attack on Lusty for 6th place not too long ago. He's actually dropped down to 9th at the back of this whole pack. Must be a little bit frustrating for him. Meanwhile, Scott is looking to move up as Villalobos is pulling away from all of them, and Jardier is not waiting as long maybe as it could have. Actually, no. Yeah, well, actually, yeah, we are basically 5 laps from the end of the race, so it's flown past the second restart, of course, with a smaller amount of laps, and Benicili takes temporarily the lead of the race, which I'm sure is exciting for him. Where, though, is Leon the sick one? He's coming down the main straight, and there is Jardier. This is going to be very, very close for the net lead of the race. Jardier on the inside line, but he will have a slower, tighter line on that pit exit. Leon with more speed out of the corner, but I think Jardier might just have it, will he? Yes, he does. Jardier stays in the lead and is timed at absolute perfection as Leon gets another huge wiggle on the curb. We saw him lose it on this curb here in the first race attempt tonight, and he's spun way, way down the field. Nearly did the same again, but he at least now is in the mix. I'm sure he would have loved to be ahead of Jardier once he saw the Lemon Lambo appear out of the pit lane. But Jardier's timed it to perfection, and Leon now has to make the move if he wants to beat his championship rival one final time. He might not be able, as it stands, to win the championship. Jardier is safe as long as he's in the top 7, regardless of what Leon does here. But I'm sure at least it's a fight for the race win trophy of this season. Both of these guys coming into the race with 4 race wins out of 9. One of them is going to probably make it 5 out of 10.
Yep. Be an interesting one. Final 5 laps we are going into. Someone is in the pits, is Benicili, so we'll be coming back out in 4th place. I was wondering for a second there how close he was actually going to be to Dowking, and at the moment they still haven't. There we go, they're now swapped positions. So yeah, keeping an eye on this battle at the front. Seeing various different little notifications saying that these guys are very, very close to each other, so we should take a look at this as Mr. Van Orman and Shooter are coming up behind them as Nagrom is still trying to get back at Scott. I think they've lost a little bit of ground to Lusty up in front of them. Obviously Villalobos is now checking out and disappearing off into the distance as well. Nagrom, though, not going to be close enough, but Scott going very deep into the corners, could potentially get nose in for Nagrom, but he thinks better of it as Scott comes in and slams the door shut in his face. So Scott, although running a little bit deep there, coming into turn 2, he has managed to make the move stick, and that almost looked like Shooter was about to go round there coming out the exit of turn 3, but he's held on to that one very nicely, but has lost the position to Mr. Van Orman.
Yes, indeed. So Van Orman trying to recover a bit of well, I say a bit of sort of honor in his season, and then I look back at his results, and he actually got a race win in round 6 at Sakito. So Van Orman's had a very medium season, and then one very large up in the middle there. But yeah, Nagrom is still pushing on. Then I was expecting Scott to sort of charge after Lusty once he got through on the red Lamborghini. But instead, it's actually Nagrom looking more likely to get back at the Bentley. And Bentley making more positions there. So this could very well be a battle between these two for, let's see, for 8th place until the end of the race. And Nagrom, of course, doesn't have a penalty. Scott does. So I wonder if Nagrom will know that and maybe take it a little bit more easy. But it can't really, can't really afford to take it too easy, because Miss Van Orman's right there behind him. Shooter might even get involved if the battle gets too intense here. But it's nice to see these midfield runners giving us some action in the final few laps of the season, while well, I was gonna say, well, the front guys are more spread out, and then I remember Jardier and Leon's actually 1 second apart on.
Yep. Those guys still going at it at the moment. It seems like Jardier has the upper hand as we come into the final 3 laps, but Nagrom is still there trying to pressurise Scott. As you say, Mr. Van Orman getting involved. 2 Desert Pack is pulled over to the side of the track. Well out of the way, it seems. Nagrom having a little bit of a look. Ooh, Scott getting a little bit wiggly as he goes a little bit defensive coming into the corkscrew. This could play into Nagrom's hands. And Nagrom having a pretty decent run there coming through turn 9 and into 10. doesn't really seem like he's able to capitalise on that run though and really be able to do anything with it. He comes very, very close under braking that to the rear of that Bentley. Is actually very, very close coming out of the exit. So now it's prime opportunity for him picking up the slipstream as we come up through turn 1, which is barely even a turn, and then into the heavy braking zone for turn 2. Scott, getting very, very close to Nagrom. Nagrom's gone deep. Mr. Van Orman has gone and taken the place away from Nagrom, but Nagrom's trying to come back at him. Mr. Van Orman shuts the door and takes that 9th position, and now it's Mr. Van Orman's turn to have a go at that Bentley as Nagrom runs very, very wide.
No, it's just all going wrong for Nagrom in all of these battles. Every time he's on the attack, he ends up losing a position instead. I kind of feel for him at the moment. At least he's fighting hard, which is fair play to him. But Mr. Van Orman now the man on the move, opportunistic to slip through at turn 1 and straight on the attack on Scott. Will he try to make the move already, getting a much better exit at turn 6 to challenge into the corkscrew? He backs out of that one. Probably a safe thing to do there, as he didn't quite have his car ahead into the braking zone for the corkscrew, and you never want to go side by side through there if you can help it. So both cars to fight another day, and that was a lovely drift there from his Van Orman. Nicely controlled, but he's lost him a little bit of ground. See then what his line will be. Bentley. The Bentley's a little bit wide actually. Van Orman a much better run, getting a little bit of slipstream as well down the straight. Got going to the inside. Van Orman will be forced to outbrake him, and he does brake very, very, very late. Locks the rear slide. Let's try to slow it down, and Scott is in his way as he tried to get it back to the apex, which means that the big Bentley is still ahead, and of course Nagrom is now back into the mix again. It seems like every time two cars started battling, another one just ends up joining the action, while all two of them are slowing each other down.
Yep. Very, very heavy battling going on. Mr. Van Orman having a look to the inside. Scott's making it very, very tight. Oh no, that's going to force Mr. Van Orman into a mistake, and that's going to drop him way off the track. Hold it together. That's a whole bunch of positions lost.
He's gone to the beach.
He has gone to the beach. He's now rejoining the circuit, but yeah, it's now dropped him from 9th place all the way down into 12, make that 13th place as Taipak has just gone through, jumping back up to the front as we're on the final lap of the race. Jardier is leading from Leon with about 7/10 of a second difference between the two. It's only going to be Leon's hope that Jardier either makes a humongous error or has some kind of technical difficulty for Leon to come away with the championship. It certainly seems like Jardier is the man in control of this race, providing he can keep it on track and everything goes smoothly for him. It looks like that he will probably be crowned champion for this season.
Yeah, I don't see anything that can stop him now. He does have a penalty, and he is the lead car as he comes down to the finish line here in the final round of season 11. And Jardier wins and becomes our second ever 3-time AOR GT3 champion in the PC Tier 1 League, as he takes out all the cones to celebrate. Leon the Sick One did put him under a lot of pressure in the championship fight throughout the whole season, brought the fight down to the final race, couldn't quite make it happen. 4 wins for Leon the Sick One across the season. Certainly a very, very strong effort from him. We saw Dalkin crossing the line in 3rd place. He will drop down the board because of his 20-second jump start penalty that will get removed. So he does finish the race in 3rd place on the podium. But no win this season for Dalkin, unfortunately. Benny Seeley crossed the line in 4th. JK was 5th. Then Villalobos gets 6th in the end ahead of Lusty. And then Scott wins out in that battle with Nagrom. That raged on for the final 10 or so laps. Shooter getting a nice top 10 to end the season as well. Zell in that McLaren, bringing it home for P11. Tapek, Leon's teammate, gets 12th place, as that's a McLaren jumping around, being very happy, going backwards into the wall. And that is that. The final race of the season is done, and we have another 3-time champion. It's The first one we had F1 Master, of course, famously in season 2, 3, and 4, and now Jardier in season 9, 10, and 11.
And there we have it, the coverage of round 10 from season 11. Obviously you can see the race results up on screen here, just a confirmation of those, and then also a confirmation of the final championship standings. And then we're going to obviously finish off with the full calendar that we ran in season 11 and the winner from each race. So that is going to conclude it for this video, and that is going to conclude our coverage of season 11 here on the channel. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. I shall try and get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Consider subscribing to the channel with that bell notification as well to make sure you don't miss out on any future videos. Season 12 will be starting at the beginning of February, so make sure you check out the AOR website for details on that if you are wanting to sign up. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching the video, guys. Hopefully I shall catch you again sometime soon in the next one. But until then, have fun, stay safe, and take care.